This video is sponsored by World Anvil. Throughout the entire lifetime of this channel, I've made several videos in my series about the many ways to create RPG characters, but I've yet to show you the method I've used the most. Not because I do it every time I sit down to play a new campaign. In fact, I don't think I've ever used this approach for a campaign that I've actually played in. But back before I had this YouTube channel, at my old day jobs, when I found myself with nothing to do, I would just create characters on D&D Beyond. I'm sure a lot of us have shared in that experience. Creating characters can be a really fun way to kill time and express your love of the game. And this method, the method we're using today, is the one I used the most when making random D&D characters. At one point, more than half of the characters in my D&D Beyond account were created using today's method. And it's also incredibly fast and easy to make characters using this approach. What is that technique? Well, there's a website you can go to that just gives you an idea for a D&D character. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to make 5 characters using this approach. And then, in Thursday's video, I'm going to show you different techniques for making cool backstories for your characters by creating backstories for all 5 of these characters. And then next week, I'll take on the role of the GM who has received these character sheets and backstories and show you how you can build a campaign around these characters, much in the same way Matt Mercer creates his campaigns with arcs focused on individual character backstories. Also, a quick disclaimer. The name of this website is a bit blue, and each page of the website contains adult language. It's just a fun website, but all the cussing is probably going to get this video demonetized. This is why I haven't said the name of the website yet. I'm trying not to say it right at the beginning of this video so it doesn't get flagged. So, consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps a lot when the algorithm makes it impossible for a video like this to make money on YouTube. I also created these 5 characters live on Twitch, so follow me on Twitch. I often go live to film videos for this series. Also, sometimes I just go online and play Hades, which is also a lot of fun. Now, without further ado, let's create some characters. We are using a website called whothefukismydndcharacter.com. Every time you open up the page, you get a new prompt. So for example, we open this up and we got an assertive half-orc barbarian from a slave market who once served as a court jester. Okay, fantastic. If I open it up again, or if I, refresh the page, a soulless tiefling monk from a small family bakery who always takes first watch. And those 2 were just examples, although those are fine. I mean, those are fine characters. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the first 5 prompts we get, minus the 2 that I've used to show you what the website does, and we're going to just create those characters in D&D Beyond. And I'm not going to be discerning at all. I'm not going to say, I'm not feeling it, which you could. Again, it just says right here, give me a fucking another one. So as another example, if we click that one, we get an enthusiastic tiefling warlock from the city post office who's rejected a foreign prince's marriage proposal. And if you think, as this suggests, that sounds fucking terrible, click it again. Conceited tiefling rogue from a silk and spices trade galley who believes in racial purity. Okay, so I said before I wasn't going to be discerning. I'm not going to make that character. Actually, I've had an idea for a tiefling villain who would believe that, but that's not what I'm going to do for the player character. Again, this was just to show you an example, but especially given that phrasing, I'm not going after that one. Since, okay, the prompt here says I've already fucking roleplayed that one, and that is not true for the tiefling rogue who believes in racial purity, but we are going to go ahead. This is going to be our first prompt. What's it going to be? I'm going to roll the stats for a fucking prejudiced gnome cleric from the hold of a slave ship who has anger problems. Okay, and first thing I'm going to do, just so I have it, is I'm going to go to backstory, and I'm just going to match text. There we go. And I'm just going to include this backstory so I know what the prompt was. Yeah, interesting. He is prejudiced, but he was also in the hold of a slave ship. Understandable that they have anger problems. They are prejudiced. Okay, so gnome. We'll go deep gnome. I like deep gnome for this, right? Because we know the deep gnomes, again, canonically, but you can do whatever you want in your game. But the deep gnomes are kind of little jerks. What's a better way to put it? Let's look at the deep gnome details page. What is their culture like? They're rarely seen by any surface dweller, so that's already a good sign. Deep gnomes, also known as Sverfneblin, guarded and suspicious of outsiders. There we go. Okay. They are cunning and taciturn, but can be just as kind-hearted, loyal, and compassionate as their surface cousins. I mean, this one isn't, but they could be. I'm not really going to get into the weeds on these as far as, every single spell or anything we could do with those. But we are going to pick a cleric, And we're going to pick a divine domain, and given this person's anger issues, I am tempted to go with war. So I think that does make sense. Yeah, Unkillable Mr. Steak, you're right. They are often enslaved by Duergar. I think that actually makes a lot of sense. So they were probably enslaved by Duergar, or Drow would work as well, but I'm going to go with Duergar, because I like that one. You know what? Let's actually come back to domain, because I feel like a lot of these could totally work. Mighty Pocket Cow, you're right. Cleric is an interesting pick for this, and that's what I like about this prompt. And what I like about this generator, I should say, is because if I say, oh, a prejudiced gnome from the hold of a slave ship who has anger issues, a lot of us are going to go barbarian right off the bat. Or maybe fighter. But no, it's a cleric. We got to make that work. And I like that. I like that there are unexpected options there. For all these videos, or for all these characters I'm going to make for this video, I'm just using the standard array. It's just easier. We don't get a background specifically spelled out in this, partly because there's only one background in the SRD, so that's what I would assume. Yeah, Commander, that's the question, is were they born into slavery or kidnapped into it? I was assuming they were kidnapped into it, so they could have any backstory before that. Oh, wait, or we could go sailor, and because they've sort of like, maybe they like hijacked the ship and sort of took to the sea. Folk hero could be why they aren't a slave during the campaign. Ooh, that's a good one, Smiling Tomatoes 101. Yeah, I do kind of like that, folk hero. Because they overthrew the ship and they freed everybody. I dig that. We can work with that, yeah. Secretly, I believe things would be better if I was a tyrant lording over the land. Well, that definitely fits with their supremacy, for sure. I have a family but no idea where they are. One day I hope to see them again. That's perfect. That was a perfect one. Sincerity. There's no good in pretending to be something I'm not. Okay, that's a good way to find a positive spin on I am a little bit prejudiced. Yeah, I mean, obviously we couldn't do respect. People deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. That would not fit with the character we've created so far. Neither aspect, the anger issues nor the prejudice. All right. And prejudice doesn't necessarily need to be like openly racist, right? It can just be this person believes a lot of like monster manual-esque assumptions about the other races in the world, and sort of I would talk to the GM and be like, listen, if you're going to run a game that has more nuance, you know, where the drow are not just all, you know, fetishist evil people, and where the Duergar aren't just all little Klingons, like, you know, if there's going to be a little more nuance, then I like that this character is going to be challenged by that, you know, and that their assumptions that all orcs are evil, that, you know, that the elves are all snooty is going to be challenged by the events of the game. If that is what the GM would be open to. I get bored easily. When am I going to go on with my destiny? I like that because it kind of fits with the sort of, it's a good way to characterize the anger issues. Yeah, we'll go with that. If someone is in trouble, I'm always ready to lend help. That's what we got randomly. And I like the idea that that is a way to help inspire them to go do D&D adventures, right? They're not necessarily a bad person. They have bad thoughts, and they're not necessarily good at managing their emotions, but they want to help people. Maybe they want to help people because of their assumptions. And of course, they believe that their people are a lot more, you know, better than others. But you still want to give them a reason to do a D&D adventure and want to help people. Otherwise, they're not going to go on D&D adventures. And yeah, everything in the comments, in the Twitch chat, people are talking about is exactly right. Community, you're right. It would be a bad idea to play them in the world that upholds their prejudices. That's why you would want to talk to the GM. Mighty Pocket Cow, you're right. It would be boring. It would not be an interesting character in that case, Community says. You're just being a fantasy racist in a world that approves of it. Exactly. Yeah, part of it is the circumstance. Part of it is just upbringing, you know, as I'm sure it so often is. And actually, no, they're bad at insight because of all their prejudices. Clearly, if they were better at it, they wouldn't be running into these problems. So we will give them medicine. Sure, why not? Arcana, not death. Forge, order, grave, knowledge, life, light, nature, peace, tempest, trickery, twilight, or war. Those are all really good. I mean, war was my obvious pick, right? If they have anger issues, it's a great way to characterize it and give us an outlet to express that in the game without immediately having a bad time for other players, right? So, like, you want to find a way to continue to articulate that they have anger issues throughout the game. So you have to have them do stuff that is angry or bad or whatever. How do you do that? Well, you could either have them blow up at NPCs, or you could have them blow up at player characters, which is especially... It may not work all the time, but, like, it could. Or you have them channel it in combat. And, yeah, people in the Twitch chat are leaning towards the other thing that I like, which is Tempest. Because, A, if we established that they were on a ship... I mean, I'm thinking this was probably it may not have been an Underdark ship. It could be that they were sailing anywhere. Yeah, I mean, I like... The other thing, too, is even if they weren't, channeling the storm because they were on the ship, I mean, I kind of do like that, though. Like, maybe this is where they've kind of felt their divine connection, is when they were on the hold of a ship and they were out at sea, and they sort of maybe used the storm as a way to help leverage their uprising. So Tempest also works, and Tempest also is a great, battle combat subclass for expressing anger and rage. So I like that one because it also gives me what I was leaning towards with the war subclass, but also matches with that sort of backstory stuff that we've talked about with them being in a slavehold. Ooh, I kind of like Hystix. Hystix is a good first name. Bemble Bumble. That's a great... Hystix Bemble Bumble. Listen, I am a big believer in allowing the names of gnomes to be goofy, because that's the fun part. Hystix Bimble Bumble. I'm going to change it to Bimble. Hystix Bimble Bumble. I like the idea of giving them a javelin, because I'm kind of like implying to my game master, hey, I would love to at some point have a javelin of lightning, just a heads up. And cartographer's tools, and that's our character. Easily done. So now we're going to create another. Give me a fucking another one. Check this shit out. I'm going to be a fucking unbalanced half-elf warlock from an underground network of dragon caves who is the last of the king's bastard children. Okay, there's a lot to work with here. If someone came to me with this as their first D&D character ever, I'd make them change it. It's anime as fuck. I don't know. This is like right up my alley. This is... the only reason this is not a character that I would ordinarily make is because I don't play warlocks. Other than that, this is like... This is my shit. So, what is the description? They're from an underground network of dragon caves who is the last of the king's bastard children. Your first thought is the princess kidnapped a dragon? Princess with Stockholm Syndrome who actually likes her dragon patron? But the last of the bastard children. You all are talking about princesses. This is not a princess. Well, technically, could be, but, like, not openly. This is more like, what's the name? Gendry from... Oh, I have to allow the word bastard, otherwise... There we go. I think they were smuggled down here. So I think that they're probably living... Again, I'm thinking of someone like Gendry. Wasn't Gendry basically an urchin? This is a Game of Thrones reference. He was basically an urchin. Well, no. Arya was an urchin. Gendry was just, like, working at a blacksmith shop. But I do like the urchin for this. Oh, wait, but they're from an underground network of dragon caves. From. Maybe instead what we'll go with is Outlander. It would be an underground version of the Outlander. But they grew up in this sort of, like, underground land. So maybe they weren't smuggled down here. Maybe this is, like, a whole other... These are, like, where the elves are. There's, like... They're half drow. They could just be half drow. Underlander. I like that. I watch over my friends as if they were a litter of newborn pups. I like that. That's cute. I was, in fact, raised by wolves. That's appropriate for the last one we got, but doesn't... I mean, they could be, like, a more wolf... Like, the wolf spiders, which is like a... I'm not coming up with that out of nowhere. That's an idea I've had before, which is a drow that worship spiders, but also worship more figures like wolves. So... There's, like, wolf imagery there. Sure, why not? They were a member of the wolf spider clan. Honor. If I dishonor myself, I dishonor my whole clan. Okay? I suffer awful visions of a coming disaster, but do anything to prevent it. That'll be fun to talk about in the next video. I have to figure out what that is. Slow to trust members of other tribes, races, and societies. That sounds a lot like our last character. But you know what? Slow to trust also makes perfect sense for someone who was raised in complete obscurity like this. So yeah. Yeah, Unkillable Mr. Steak, you're right. This is the perfect character for the gnome to be prejudiced against within the party. Yeah, that's actually a lot of fun. Oh, animal handling. Absolutely, they have to have animal handling. And we will give them nature. Because I think, no, let's pivot that to perception. Also, something that does happen when you're creating a party is that not everybody always makes characters that don't share traits. So the fact that we have two, you know, Underdark themed, semi-racist characters, not necessarily racist, slow to trust or prejudiced characters, you know, depending on the character, is just a fun coincidence. Hello, welcome, 3 Geese in a Trench Coat. I love your username. And oh my gosh, that's so kind of you. Thank you so much. I'm very glad to hear that this has made you want to start GMing. I'm very, very happy to hear that. So obviously, this character grew up in dragon caves. It sure would be nice if there was a dragon warlock, but there's not. So we're instead going to give them an archfey. Because I know this is a very difficult choice, but I think it makes sense. You could easily go with a lot of these. They grew up in dragon caves, so you could argue that like the fire theming of a dragon cave might work with a fiend, or these elves are particularly attuned with nature. You know, they're living out in more of the wilderness of the Underdark, so it feels like it's a better opportunity for a sinister archfey to show up. So, ooh, I do like that a lot, Communer. That maybe because of the dragon horde, they found like a genie bottle, and they're a genie. Their patron is a genie. I like that a lot. That's great. Let's roll a d4 to determine what kind of genie it was. 3, free, fire, perfect. Perfect. Yeah, I really like that. That's a great way to use the backstory, you know, the link to dragons in a way to help reinforce the backstory. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Communer. That's great. Actually, no, they wouldn't speak Primordial because they weren't raised with a genie. They would speak Draconic because they grew up in dragon caves. Ooh, Feora is already a really good name. Oh, Feorora. No, I would go with Feora. All right, that is our next character, Feora. All right, let's make another. We're 2 down, 3 to go, and I've got half an hour. Let's do it. Talented halfling warlock from a bustling city market who has a serious weapons fetish. Well, I think we know it's gonna be a hexblade. I mean, A, because it gives us a very different play style. You know, hexblades play differently than a genie warlock would, and also because it fits with that backstory, or with the prompt that we got from a bustling city market. So we're gonna make them a merchant. Let's make them a stout halfling. Urchin could work, owlbear, but I think I like the better idea that they are actually, because if they got their hands on weapons, I like the idea that they're actually able to do that. Like, they're able to buy weapons because they have a little bit of scratch, rather than stealing weapons from other people. But Urchin is very tempting. And this is the other thing, too. Like, again, the reason I'm only just picking whatever comes up, and rather than cycling through them, is because I want to simulate through these 3 videos what happens when sometimes people come and they are like, they come with very similar characters, and you gotta figure out how to make it work for your group. And so that's going to be part of the fun of this trilogy of videos, is that there will be some overlap. You know, I'm trying not to think entirely about how to make these characters distinct because sometimes that doesn't happen. And you as the GM have to find a way to give them different room to breathe. I'm rude to people who lack my commitment to hard work and fair play. And you know what? Because they've got a weapons... What was it? A weapons fetish? It's a weapons fetish. Okay. Then I'm going to go with, I'm a snob who looks down on those who can't appreciate fine art. Yeah, exactly, Communer. I think that they've basically bought or, you know, traded for a blade that wound up being sentient and, you know, became their hex weapon. Yeah, Hitchhiker, first of all, welcome. Glad to have you here. Hitchhiker Warlocks are, I think, reasonable because you get so many invocations. It's really only at level 1 that you run into an issue of, like, with honestly most of these classes... Level 1 is the rough one of, like, we all kind of do the same things. I'm tempted to go with greed. So I'm going to. I don't know why. I just feel it. I feel like it works. I will get revenge on the evil forces that destroyed my place of business and ruined my livelihood. Sure, that got them adventuring. Yeah, I dig it. Ooh, I'm never satisfied with what I have. I always want more. Yeah, let's do it. That was maybe the fastest character we've made so far. Let's give them Undercommon to give them an excuse to trade with the other Underdark figures in case they wind up going down there. And because they're clearly... This doesn't seem like a very scrupulous person, so they would probably trade with whoever. Smith's tools. So they can maybe make swords or repair swords. Oh no, you made a capitalist arms dealer. Maybe a little. Yeah, maybe just a little bit. Heart Dancer? I like Heart Dancer. Conric. Conric's good. I'm going to take out that W. Conric. Conric Heart Dancer. Cool. I just want to take a minute here and acknowledge that some of these characters inherently come with a big burden of doing some world building. And that can be a lot of fun, both for players and GMs. When a player comes in with a city or a noble family or an important location, like, say, the Dragon Caves, and then the GM has to find a way to weave that into the story. And when you're the game master, you're going to want a way to keep track of all that information. Which brings us to today's sponsor, World Anvil. World Anvil is a fantastic resource that you can use to build a world from scratch, including taking on the content you're given by your players and spinning it into its own world. You can create beautiful articles and share them with your players, so if you have a bit of lore that your players need to know before the game, you can send them articles and they're actually way more likely to read them because of these dynamic templates. Plus, World Anvil can work for you throughout the campaign as you share new articles with the players of NPCs they met or monsters they encountered, and they can actually go back to these later and refresh their memories, which makes them more engaged players. And World Anvil is offering a discount to the viewers of this channel. If you visit worldanvil.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code SUPERGEEK, you could save 40% off of any annual membership. Once again, that's worldanvil.com/supergeekmike and use the promo code SUPERGEEK at checkout. Thank you so much to World Anvil for sponsoring this video. How many have we made so far? We've made 3, so let's make another. You think your character is cool? My character is a fucking cool-headed tiefling wizard from a line of fallen royalty who is a recovering cannibal. Oh boy, that took a turn at the end there. Whoa! That zagged on me. Alright. Something happened to this guy. I'm gonna give them a noble background, though. Oh, so you're thinking this is like world's most deadly man or whatever it's called. The, greatest game sort of thing. Ooh, that's interesting. Same royal line as the half-elf? That's up for the Dungeon Master. I don't know. Great question. Don't know. I've always liked... This is something I should really do a whole other video about. I've always liked the idea of tieflings as, like, ancient nobility, like the Romanovs or something, because it's something from 4th edition was that they had a whole human empire that fell to decadence and crumbled, and I love that. So this is like really in line with the kind of stuff I love. Maybe not the cannibalism. We'll figure that out. I mean, I hide a truly scandalous secret that could ruin my family forever. I feel like, yes. I have an insatiable desire for decadent pleasures. Yes. I secretly believe that everyone was beneath me. I'm gonna pick all 3, because they all kind of work. I'll face any challenge to win the approval of my family. I mean, probably, right? I mean, they're... Ooh. Yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. Ideals. Independence. I must prove that I can handle myself without the coddling of my family. Yeah, so I mean, they want to prove themselves for their approval. Yeah, I mean, it works. Personality. We know they're cool-headed. My elegant flattery makes everyone feel like the most important person in the world, and I don't like to get my hands dirty. Cool. Lovely Pokey, how would you not get your hands dirty as a cannibal? If you're not the one who's doing the sourcing, you're just eating what's on your plate. None of these names that they suggest have anything to do with how names suggested in the player's handbook. Sterling. Sterling's not bad, actually. Sterling's good for this, because it is also just a name. People can be named Sterling. But it also fits with the meaning of very good or having superior quality, but it also kind of evokes sterling silverware. So I like that a lot. Ooh, Unkilled Mr. Steak, that's a good point as well. Sterling like a silver tongue. That kind of works as well. All right, let's make our last character. Check this shit out. I'm going to be a fucking driven human warlock. Huh. Let's read the rest of this. Driven human warlock from a rural construction company who always romanticized adventure. Okay. I now have to intervene and say that if I were a game master, I would say, no, we have 2 warlocks. Please make something else. Critical half-orc fighter from a secluded forest village who has been exiled twice under different names. Ooh, I like that. Okay. Yeah, Wolf Charlatan is what I was thinking of. I couldn't remember the name of the background, which is very funny because I played a charlatan for a long time. But yes, charlatan is exactly right. Athletics, insight. If they're a practiced liar, they would need to be good at insight. Look at them, a longsword and a shield. Set of weighted dice. No. Signet ring of an imaginary duke. Yes. Yes, I like that. They're passing themselves off as like a knight. Which is why they have a shield. Which is why they have the, all the equipment they have. Maybe the fact that we have 2 nobles in our party is going to be very interesting. Goblin. No. No, no, no. Undercommon. The language of the underground. Dueling. Because I've already decided I'm going to give them a shield because it kind of fits with their flavor and their backstory. So yes. These are all very, very good. Okay. Flattery is my preferred trick for getting what I want. That definitely fits with the knight ruse that we've established. And roll another. I pocket anything I see that might have some value. I dig it. That'll work. A lot of these are great. Like, it would be a lot of fun to do. I lie about almost everything. Fallen out of love easily would be good as well. But I'll stick with I pocket anything that might have some value. I'm determined to make something of myself. Okay, so this is kind of like a twisted version of... Wait a minute. Is this A Knight's Tale? Are we just doing A Knight's Tale? Then yeah, I'm going to go with I fall in and out of love easily. I'm not going to... he'll still pocket everything. Sure, why not? I like that there's one here that says, I come from a noble family, and one day I'll reclaim my lands and title from those who stole them from me. Which is very funny, given that that's... I'm going to write that down, but that's a ruse. That's not true. And then I'm going to go with I fleeced the wrong person. That's why they have to keep running. Except now they're half-orc and not a pretty boy. That's true. They're not Heath Ledger. Always in debt. Yeah, I like that. No, you know what? I can't resist swindling people who are more powerful than me. That's what it's actually going to be. So we're going to make some changes here. We're going to edit. We're going to remove the always in debt one, because it's much more interesting to have them... I think it's more interesting to have them trying to rip people off for the love of it. I'm also going to put, I come from a noble family in quotes. I come from a noble family, and one day I'll reclaim my lands and title from those who stole them from me. Yeah, sure you will. Sure you will. That's fun. I like that a lot. That's a fun character. Yeah, you're right, Suki. I should put, I should identify that is the ruse. Good call. I don't love these. Yeah, this is not working. List of King Arthur's knights. Sir Lionel's not bad. I almost like Tristan. But for reasons I'll explain in a moment, I'm actually going to go with something else. Sir Lionel. Yeah, this is going to be Sir Lionel Dugray. The reason I'm naming them Dugray is for 2 reasons. One, Tristan, you reminded me of Tristan Dugray, which is Chad Michael Murray's character from Gilmore Girls. And the reason I thought of that for a D&D character is specifically because my first character's last name was Dugray. It was a human. And he was like a swashbuckler who wanted to be like a big deal. And I like the idea that this character might be related to them. Might be like somewhere down the road. I mean, he wound up being a huge, important character in my Game Master's world. He wound up being like the Nick Fury of his world, I believe, for a while. So he might have family out there. But I do think this is a made-up name. I don't think he's actually related to that. That just gave me the idea. I like Lionel Dugray as a name. So I think it is a made-up name. I don't know what their actual name is. I mean, Lionel Dugray is also just a great name for this character. Maybe Lionel Dugray is his real name. Which means I need a different name. If we're sticking with great names from Gilmore Girls, Max Medina's last name is excellent. Mordred Medina, no. Marcellus? Marcellus is good. Thank you, Albert. I actually like that. Marcellus Medina. Because it actually is hard to beat Max Medina, but Marcellus Medina is pretty good. Okay. That's it. those are the 5 characters that we've created with whothefuckismydndcharacter.com. Also, literally as soon as I ended this live stream, I realized that I named the Charlatan Knight Lionel. I put the word lie into his name. No wonder he goes by so many pseudonyms. Thank you so much for watching. This process was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed pulling up whothefuckismydndcharacter.com and just creating a character in only a few minutes. And as I said earlier, we're going to come back to this party on Thursday, and I'm going to create backstories for each character. Some of those backstories will be very complex and detailed, and some will probably be much simpler. But throughout that process and throughout that video, I'm going to give you advice on how much backstory you should give to your GM. And then on Monday, we're going to see exactly how a game master might work with those backstories and weave them into a campaign. So if you want to see all those videos, then make sure to subscribe and ring the bell. Please also consider supporting me on Patreon. It helps me a lot, it helps keep the lights on, and it's much kinder than the YouTube algorithm. Join my Discord server to hang out with other awesome people, and follow me on Twitch to catch my future live streams. Check out this video here for my latest episode of Critical Role Demystified, where you can see what happens when a game master uses a player character's backstory to build a campaign. It's a lot of fun. Until next time, play fair and have fun.